Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another of the Karen Bashford Empowerment Mentor Show, or should I call it the Sloth or Beaver Show? Well, I'm not entirely sure which, but either way, during this show, we'll be talking a little bit about a certain aspect or attribute. In this case, it's going to be about validation or seeking external validation, something I used to be very prone to. Um, and then what we'll do is relate that to a toolkit that Karen has very helpfully created called the Sloth or Beaver Toolkit, which maps out effectively your life, but uses questions that arise from a stack of cards, of which there are 6 different varieties. And we'll be asking a couple of questions from that, just so you can get some of the flavor of it. But first of all, welcome, Karen.
Thank you. Nice to
Seems
be
weird.
here again.
It seems weird welcoming you to your own show, but no matter.
There it goes.
There you go. So, validation. Now, when I was younger, I'm going to use me as an example because I'm the only person I know well. When I was very young, my father is a bit of, we used to call Mr. Logic. He didn't really emote very much. He never knew whether you were right or wrong, but he used to mostly tell you when you were wrong, and very, very little when you were right. In fact, I don't remember him ever telling me I was right. I just remember him pointing out, no matter how well I'd done, that there was flaws and that was wrong and you should do it again. Fair enough. But even as late as my early 40s, whenever I used to come and visit, I'd always be telling him what was going on in my life. And I knew it, I could feel it. It was to try and get somehow validated. Approval, yes.
Yeah, you wanted approval.
And the less it came, the more I did it. And I remember Heather remembers when we visited together, because I used to go by myself, but towards the time when my mother needed hospitalization and my father was growing older, she came and she said, "You realize you're doing this? That you're constantly telling them stories, and your father goes, huh, and your mother goes, oh, look at that." And the more they do that, the more you keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not always just with parents or parent figures. It could be with people you perceive as your friends that you're trying to attract them. Or it could be with work colleagues because you want them to think you're one of the cool kids, as it were. But whatever it is, it's a hard drug not to take. You know, you keep wanting to keep doing it more because the less you get it, the more you want to do it.
Yeah.
Is that your experience? Is that your experience?
And I will talk about a client I worked with who hadn't realized quite how much she was seeking her father's validation. And one of the things that really stood out in the work together was the fact she turned around and said, my father never asked me how my day was. And yet, as children, and we never grow out of being our parents' children, we seek to have our parents show interest in us and to actually recognize how well we're doing, or if we're not doing well, what they can do to help us. But she'd never, ever had that. So consequently, every time she got a promotion, she would question herself because she didn't think she was good enough because her father hadn't bothered to ask, how are you doing? Or if she shared something with him, it was never, oh, well done, or, oh, that doesn't sound like a good move. At least there was some recognition, but there was never any recognition. So she assumed she was not good enough.
Yeah, I remember talking to someone recently. I talked to someone recently. He said, well, I never got any, no, my parents never, look at me, I turned out all right. And I'm thinking to myself, but you're a whole mess of contradictions. Yeah. I see it. I see when you're with other people, constantly having to belittle them or somehow show yourself to be better or more magnificent in some way. I think it all leads to that, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. And I'm a prime example because my parents had never sort of shown me love, which is a form of approval, basically, because if they show you love, they're actually saying, yeah, you're okay, you're good.
Yeah.
That never comes. That never ever comes. So there was always this doubt in my mind that whenever I did something, is this going to be good enough? Or when in my relationships, if there was a problem, I never thought to stand up and say, well, actually, I think we should be doing this. It was always, well, you tell me what to do. And that's not the way to be in any relationship, constantly asking somebody to tell you what to do, or to not allow yourself to say what you need to say.
But I guess in your mind, especially you growing up, you there's this kind of background voice that says, well, you won't do anything wrong if you let someone else make the decision.
Yeah.
If you defer to someone else's ideas,
Yeah.
you can't be doing anything wrong then, can you?
No, definitely not. You never do anything wrong if you're relying on somebody else to constantly tell you what to do. Yeah, right. Definitely.
But it's I mean, it's easy for me to say there's no way to live, but I'm of an age that I look back at those times and I think to myself, but maybe I could have flourished. I don't know. You see, if you start questioning these things, it's a bit of a rabbit hole, isn't it? You're thinking, you know, if I had been given that affirmation, if I had been shown that I was actually had solid and sensible thoughts and maybe had ideas worth listening to, that maybe I could have been a better, more understanding, more understandable person.
Well, you can look back and see the things that have happened that have made you now, but that doesn't mean to say you have to continue them.
No, but I think it is the old adage. It's an old dog doesn't learn new tricks. I don't think that's entirely true. Any dog can learn any trick. It's just the older you get, the harder it is to learn that lesson, because the grooves from that cart having passed that path so often are so deep that it's actually quite hard to go anywhere else but where the grooves lie. And so it takes a lot of force of character to get out of that and make a change.
Yes and no. I would say if you just focus on what the problem is or what you've been doing, yes, it can take time. However, if you're willing to actually recognize that that pathway has not been the right one for you, you then can start to question. And the thing about anything in life, if we question, we often find that we have the answers already. So we can actually actively choose to recognize, I've been following this path. Is this really what I want to keep following? Yeah. And yes, we can look back and see the times that we created that pathway or the deviations on that pathway that then brought us back to where we originally were.
Right.
But in looking and questioning, you can start to realize just how much you have relied on what you know already, rather than thinking, well, if I'm curious about this path, what's going to happen?
Yes, it's curiosity very rarely causes problems. It's people who make rash decisions based on curiosity, I think. Excuse me. All right, so let's relate this to the Sloth or Beaver Toolkit. Now, what we're asking here is for you to perhaps, oh gosh, Danielle Berger, Berger, I hope I've got it right, has commented and said, when we slow down to listen to that deeper knowing, we do indeed find the answers within. Karen?
We sure do. And I'm so grateful that I did slow down. And I know a lot of my clients I've worked with are very, very grateful that they've had this chance to recognize that even without their parents' approval, even without colleagues saying, oh, you did well in that and such, like, they don't need it. None of us need external validation. We can approve ourselves. The trouble is, because we're constantly expecting somebody to turn around and say to us, you've done well there, or that was a good move on your part, or that was a brilliant idea, we're automatically allowing somebody else to confirm that we're good enough. We don't need to do that. And that's where it comes to actually asking yourself the questions that will make a big difference. And that's what Slothful Beaver is about.
All right. Well, I think without further ado, can you find a sort of a card that will perhaps encapsulate some of this?
Right. This one's from Just General Relationships.
Okay.
Your relationships are formed as you grow by the words and actions of those around you. If you've only experienced relationships that left you feeling that you were unwanted, you will find it hard to trust. Your self-worth is connected to how much you felt loved and wanted as a child. Do you feel loved by your family, or is there an emptiness within? And when we have that emptiness within, we actually question ourselves because we don't feel safe, we don't feel secure, and therefore we're automatically assuming that actually we're not good enough, that we haven't had that confirmation,
right,
that I am okay and that I can do whatever I want to do, and I don't need somebody else telling me this is what you need to do.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because another old adage, old habits die hard. It can be easy, especially in times of stress, to slip back into that deferment to somebody else's ideas. Well, they obviously think I'm rubbish, so I must be rubbish. Or
that's why we need to question.
Yeah, but it's I guess opening your mind up to the curiosity to think, well, hang on a moment, maybe I could have been wrong. Maybe I am actually a half decent human. Maybe I do have good ideas. Maybe the fact that I was not given the affirmations that I was looking for doesn't mean I have to be an ape of that idea. I can be my own person. You know, it's quite a hard thing. I'm going to quickly put on the link at the bottom, Slothful Beaver. Please do go and have a look. The QR code in the corner, especially in this run up to the Christmas season. I think this is one of the most interesting and thought-provoking presents someone can give. Can you get me another question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Karen. We're giving you ideas of some of the questions that are available in the stacks of cards with it. There are 6 different stacks. And Karen, can you tell me what the name of each set of cards are?
Right. Well, there's health, money mindset, relationships, intimate relationships, life, and business. Okay. So everything connects, but if you just start questioning, say, life, you can start to see the patterns you've created, the behaviors you've created, which are keeping you safe. But yes, safety isn't necessarily the right course of action because it's keeping you safe in a way that's not necessarily authentic and true to you. Therefore, you're choosing a life and living a life that isn't aligned to who you really want to be.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So the next question.
Yes.
What do you perceive vulnerability to be? When do you feel safe being vulnerable? Vulnerability means being open to expressing your authentic self. It involves sharing what is important to you and allowing yourself to feel the freedom to feel your emotions, even if doing so means risking hurt. We close ourselves off from our feelings when we feel unsafe and unloved. Yet loving yourself and being loved necessitates vulnerability. And if you have never been told that you're loved, or if you feel that the person who was supposed to be there to support and encourage you as a child has never shown that interest, you're never going to feel capable enough to be vulnerable because it's going to hurt too much.
Yes, it's I mean, for me, it was a point of fear for many years that allowing myself to be vulnerable, because if you crack open that shell, it's all marshmallowy inside. So that, you know, that means very easy to damage. So the simplest thing was just have a hard shell, be unaffected by everything, be disaffected. I was I was
we all
diffident
do
in
it.
pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah, we can all do that very, very easily. But that doesn't serve you in the long run, because if you continue to shut off from your emotions, potentially your body is going to turn around and say, well, actually, I can't cope with this anymore. I need to feel my emotions. I need to be vulnerable, because when we love ourselves, we're willing to be vulnerable. But how many of us really know how to love ourselves?
So Sloth or Beaver is a toolkit that's based around a board. Effectively, it's kind of like guiders to your life path. And people who are, it could be one person, it could be a number of people, up to about a maximum of six, you advise.
Yeah, 6, yeah.
Uh, effectively take turns taking cards from the stack and asking a question and creating almost a discussion point for the group. And if there are a group there, I would say it's a way of opening your hearts to each other. It's certainly I perform it, act it, do it. I use the kit. Thank you. I participate with my wife and my best friend Joe, and occasionally with my daughter as well. And it has brought up some things. On occasions, there's been tears, there's been joy at the point of realization. You know, especially when one person, Joe, said, I always felt this way, and I was so unsure. And immediately Heather jumped in and said, I've always felt that way. It was amazing, but actually it's suddenly created a level playing field for them both, and it's created a stronger friendship for us all, actually. So I would thoroughly recommend people take a look at it. Now, I want to talk about one other thing. Karen Bashford is an empowerment mentor, and her focus traditionally has been, and most successfully, with ladies of a certain age who are trying to find their way back from perhaps roles they've always assumed to who they really are. And you've always said, Karen, that the answers always lie within. It's you don't really bring anything to the table. You're more of a conduit. You're a catalyst to help them find their way back to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and the best way to start that process, if that's what you're looking for, I cannot more strongly recommend that you have a conversation. Karen is very good at finding out and eking out of you that which should be discussed and talked about, and this is a really good way of getting going.
I would say it's quite painless as well. I don't create pain within you. It's quite painless.
Yeah. One thing, I'm not going to talk for you, but you've always said to me, Karen, is you don't believe a preponderance of focus and reliving the traumatic events of the past.
No point. No point at all. None at all.
Right. But you are looking how you are now, and how can you move forward into the future? Is that?
Yeah, I look for the patterns, and we all have patterns, and none of us are really different. It's just that we've utilized those patterns in different ways. So something that happened in childhood becomes a reaction, and consequently you go back to that reaction every time something else happens that's similar, and therefore that creates a pattern of behavior. When you find those patterns of behavior, you don't need to go into the story. You just ask, what happened as a child when you went to school the first time. You will know whether it was a good experience or a bad experience. If it was a bad experience, you're probably already created an emotional response. That is potentially a starting point for your behavior for the rest of your life, unless you question it.
I would say personally, anyone who's been to public school or through the public school system will probably have plenty of this. I went to Collet Court, which is St. Paul's Junior School, and I had a reasonably pleasant time of it. And then when I went to St. Paul's, the senior school, it was terrible. It was awful. I felt undervalued, unwanted. I felt like a spare part. And when I went home, because I didn't really feel that I was getting anything there, you can imagine it's all kind of self-building. If you're not getting it at school, you're not getting it at home. And those are the two places you spend most of your time, your self-image plummets, and you end up thinking that you are a piece of shit. And you can live your life being that way. I suspect finding a way past that, seeing yourself as truly what you are, is very useful, especially with someone who's perhaps entrenched in those feelings.
Well, I definitely was, that's for sure.
You're a good example, Karen. And that leads me to one last thing before we sign off today. Every Monday, midday, is released a new version of Karen Bashford's podcast, which appears both in audio form and audio visual form on YouTube. I'll put a link to it at the top. It's the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. And one is dropping in about 20 minutes. I'm very pleased to say, into the queue, ready to be put ready out on Monday. I know it's going to be a good one because guess what? I edited it, so I know it's good. And it's an interesting mix, actually. Your format of your podcast is very much trying to pull from the other person that you're interviewing what makes them truly intriguing and to ramp up the curiosity in a listener, I think.
Yes, definitely. It's because I'm naturally curious, being a Gemini. I like to hear stories. And for me, there's so many gems in somebody's story that it opens you up to thinking differently, or it opens you up to realizing that you've not the only one with the problem, or are still going through a problem, or recognizing just how much you've come through a situation that you faced and gained from it. So yeah, I'm very much into let's get the story out.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. It's been yet another wonderful weekly edition of the Karen Bashford Empowered Mentor Show. I can't speak. And I want to thank all of you that have stuck with us. Thank you very much for your comments. And also, more importantly, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please try and look after that mental health. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye.